United States has no word or say in Ukraine, because in order for you to have say, you have to maintain at least some kind of pretense of the good hand in your poker game. But United States, well, it doesn't have the hand at all to start with. The main talk between Russians and Americans, and if it happens, it will be about larger strategic sense in terms of what United States wants as its sphere of influence. And Russia will say, okay, we agree on that. Here's our sphere of influence. Don't go there. If you go, well, there could be second, Ukraine or what have you. So, and that will be the negotiations. Obviously, Russians will be talking about also a little bit on the China's, role into all this, because China is the third, so to speak, pillar of this geopolitical balance, or if, as people say today, real new world order, instead of this what is called the globalist ideas and woke culture and other insidious things which originated from the combined West. Well, Russia is not going to really engage in the larger sense about Ukraine with Trump. Russians are not interested in discussing Ukraine. United States has no business to start with there. Ukraine, if it survives, and it's entirely up to Russia, will exist on the terms Russians already presented, and those are very simple terms. It's just that this critical phrase from the get-go, and it is repeated by Russian Foreign Ministry and Vladimir Putin himself, about that, considering the realities on the ground. But in terms of whatever United States will say, oh, we will allow you to have this, United States cannot allow or not allow anything regarding Ukraine, and simple as that. And that will be the main talk. As per operational tactical realities, I mean, as I already stated, why would Russians rush larger masses of troops, for example? Can Russia take Pokrovsk in a week? Yes. Why? It shouldn't do it. Because you will kill more your own people. Simple as that. So why don't we bypass it? And if you take a look at the map, you can see those, Russians already bypassed Pokrovsk pretty much, and on the south it's completely bypassed, and all the arteries, transport arteries are cut. And from the north, there is also movement. So basically it's pretty much, it's a template now. Ukraine and NATO, they cannot just surrender cities and towns because how to put it, for the PR effect. They need to hold on to them somehow, so because otherwise, how can you justify all kinds of this, BS, which is narrative, American narrative, especially in European narrative. And as a result, they get killed more of their people, they lose critical reserves, and then Russians move on, like it happened with Kurakhova and other places, So then many people do not know. Russians are already operating, actually, the diversionary recon groups on the right or western bank of Dnieper River. United States is not capable to fight Russia conventionally in Europe. Simple as that. It doesn't have a table of organization and equipment which satisfied even the minimal requirements for stay alive within the months, So, and Americans are not used to, for example, casualties which will be incurred on the U.S. Army if it really decides to commit suicide. And this is not my numbers, 3,600 a day. So the United States will U.S. Army will achieve the level of the KIAs, 58,000 killed in Vietnam in 10 years. They will achieve it within between 2 and 4 weeks. So yeah, this is reality of that war. And so let Mr. Trump think, but something tells me, I might be wrong, that he wants to make this war his war, because he has very many people who are absolutely mindless and clueless in his administration. They do not understand how the balance of power or how the balance of forces and means is formed. They do not teach it really in the serious military educational facilities in the West. And as such, don't forget, the proof is in the pudding. For 3 years, these people, they operated on the basis of propaganda from Kiev. Even this Keith Kellogg, which tells you everything you need to know about his professional qualifications, which are about zero for the modern war. He still goes and Russians lost 1 million killed, while Ukraine lost 700,000 killed. So if he is there, he's not professional, military professional. He doesn't understand what he's dealing with. And that is exactly the case. US military has no reference point. They never encountered anything like this. And many, they cannot grasp the reality, and others do not want to grasp the reality because it's the issue of the, simple professional and historical envy and jealousy. And because of that, they have to cover their complex of inferiority. United States Army never fought anything like that. United States simply has nothing much left to give. Whatever United States will provide, well, those stocks which are completely depleted, they have to withdraw things from the, standing army, from all those armored division or whatever they send, 100 Abrams, or 200 Abrams, and they will be all burned, they will be all destroyed, together with whatever is left from all those. They can try to get their THAAD. Russians would love to have THAAD. Because can you imagine the rewards for those people who will destroy it, So, yeah, that's it. What else? What? Nuclear weapons? They cannot give nuclear weapons. So I doubt that Trump will do that. But other than that, what else? They cannot deploy US Army if they want to fight Russia. It will be destroyed. No matter what they do. Trump is a narcissist. It's a well-established fact. So as such, he is by no means stupid, but he is definitely the product of the American political culture, which is primarily for the show. He cannot go out and say, and you saw yourself. Well, it is a sort of acknowledgement of the realities. First, it was 24 hours he could stop the war. Then it is now 100 days. Then it will be, as I already stated, several years. Their life will continue, will go on. Russians will then probably go and completely erase Ukraine, essentially as we know it, from the map, and nothing he can do about it. But, as I already stated, today is the 2 weeks as he is in power. And so far, what I see, he definitely wants to make this war his war. And he will lose it. But as you correctly stated, while he learned some things about the team, the cabinet he brings with him, unlike it was the case with the first term, where he was appointing people who actually openly hated him. So that tells me much, actually, about his real skills, not those advertised skills like, oh, I like the deal and things like that. It's such a beaten to death term, like, let's make a deal. He's not good at deals, okay? He is the guy who started arming Ukraine and, or during the first term. And so I don't think much will change. And he has to maintain this decorum of the all-powerful guy. He loves to think about himself that, so. And probably, and again, don't quote me on that. I could be wrong, and I don't mind being wrong. But I think so. He is on the way now of making it his war, and then learning. He's probably already learned a little bit, maybe, considering the fact that Pete Hegseth, his Secretary of Defense, he was saying some very sober things about the reality of American industrial and technological military development. For the boys who watched too much Hollywood, they believe why Russians are not, pushing them out of Kursk completely. Why? Because they feed there non-stop, whatever the reserves they had. And in Kursk alone, they lost since August 6th, something around 58,000 KIAs. They killed the whole combined arms army there. Russians say come in, since there's the only thing they are good at is to fight civilians, and that's what NATO is good at. And as a result, so reality is such that the Russians are not in Russia, and they have no stimulus or stimuli, outside stimuli, to take any of these blasters seriously, and they don't. They don't. As I already stated, it's this whole thing about the negotiations which do not exist. And Russians saying, what kind of negotiations? Nobody contacted us, This is the balance of power, so to speak, and it's changing each day, not sometimes incrementally, sometimes drastically in Russia's favor. And so Russians are not in rush, because in the end, some people say, I call it a real Gerasimov doctrine, not this BS which was circulated by all kind of so-called specialists, in Russia, like all kinds of like Mr. Galeotti or Mike Kaufman, just on the merit that they can speak Russian. No, the real Gerasimov doctrine is the essentially rephrasing of the famous dictum by Clausewitz that the main object of the war is to compel the enemy to do our will. Gerasimov doctrine reads like to compel the enemy to do our will by means of physical annihilation of its armed forces. And this is exactly what Russians are doing. And it has actually very little to do with Clausewitz, but a lot with Mr. Alexander Svechin. But of course, most American generals never heard about him. So, and they never studied real history of the World War II, for example, how Russians view strategically the whole continental warfare. And as a result, they believe into this, whatever they have these delusions about modern warfare. And as a result, they are in for a very rude awakening once they really contact Russians, and Russians begin to speak broadsides to them about what is really going on the battlefield, albeit some middle operational level of Pentagon, they probably know it. It just people are afraid to tell it to the political leadership that guys were screwed big time. When Kit Kellogg will come and will meet somebody for the first time on the Russian side, he will have the guys, military guys, who make his military experiences a Lilliputian, okay? He'll be talking to the guys who commanded combined arms and even operational access in the largest conflict in human history after World War II, because many people do not even understand the scale of what is happening. So they will be looking at him and like, dude, do you even know what you're talking about? Do you have numbers? And Russians gladly will afford to him a little bit of the insight on the balance of power, which United States tries to maintain by throwing, as I already stated, highly dubiously effective, to put it mildly, in reality, highly ineffective and very expensive American weapon systems, ranging from tanks to air defense complexes and things like that. And have you heard recently about F-16s? Yeah, they are afraid to even fly them, so because they know they take off, they are shut down. Now we have 2 weeks of Trump official basically staying as in their Oval Office as the president of the United States. And as I suspected, and I was saying this for the last year nonstop, because already by the middle of the year, it was clear that he's going to win the election, that he will have about 2-3 weeks max before this war in Ukraine becomes his war, and his presidency will be ruined together with the remnants of American self-respect, and and the humiliation will continue. So evidently he's hell-bent now to make this war his war, despite the fact that all this lofty rhetoric. Remember, 24 hours, now is 100 days, then it will be 100 years. So, and it's just all political theater. It's all for political show, but reality substance is not there. He literally has nothing to offer Russia. It's because Russians don't care about sanctions. They don't care about anything. They care about actually moving NATO out of the way. And they want to discuss with Trump, not Ukraine. Ukraine is not America's business to start with. The United States have been thoroughly defeated and humiliated in Ukraine. And in Europe, it is about the overall security structure, so to speak, in Europe. And if the United States is not ready to give what Russians demand, then there will be no any kind of substantive negotiations, albeit, Russians are really good. Fact is, Russian diplomacy is the best diplomacy in the world in terms of pulling the cojones of the cat, and so Russians will be involved in those negotiations for years or whatever, but meanwhile, the dynamics on the battlefield is very clear. only people like Petraeus and Ben Hodges and people, those not very smart American generals, they believe that any kind of outcome could be altered. It cannot. It's set in stone, and we know what is happening. So, and that's what is this all about. It is all about, showing the picture of, the still mighty United States trying to control the narrative. But that's what the United States primarily does in the last 20 years, narratives, so that's what it is. Donald Trump talks a lot, okay? He always did. Most behind his talk is empty words, which, for example, Russians coming out and constantly debunk his statements like, oh, we have successful negotiations. Which negotiations? Actually, as it turned out, then, of course, everybody begins to read this content of what he's talking about. They merely discussing possibility of scheduling some kind of meeting. So probably on the level of the working group, probably the Keith Kellogg will go out. He will parade themselves there as basically a joke. Russians will laugh at him, and that will be it, I think. And again, even that is not in plans. When you have the spokesperson for Kremlin, Mr. Peskov, and First Deputy Foreign Minister, Mr. Ryabkov, speaking that nobody contacted us or anything, yet somehow the negotiations are successful. Well, I guess this is what Keith Kellogg and Trump administration does. They are staying in contact with Ukrainian side, and they will continue to stay with them. Russians are not interested, and as already so many times have been stated that, yeah, Russia is ready for the negotiated solution as long as, those points or items have been, satisfied. And we all know about what Russians are talking about. I mean, USAID was doing in Ukraine the same as it does everywhere, promoting all kinds of the insane ideas, which in the end should work for promoting the United States interest. Simple as that. There's nothing really new there. And again, USAID or USAID is just one track on which the subversion of Ukraine and changing of the regime, which is coup d'etat in 2014, was happening. So much of it was also going through the direct State Department, such as Victoria Nuland or insane late John McCain and his so-called Institute for Democracy, which are all fronts and grant eaters for all kinds of the nefarious operations. So it's again, as I already stated, there's nothing really secret about it. It's in the open, and yeah, Ukrainians embrace that because they loved it at that time. They don't love it anymore. So, and as for military assistance, yeah, there was a kind of pause, but again, it resumed, and yeah, so it changes absolutely nothing, because United States has literally zero what it can provide Ukraine in terms of the quantity and quality, very low quality of the American weapons, which can change or alter in any way the outcome of what is happening right now in special military operations. So yeah, it's pretty much a lot of noise around it, definitely. But other than that, business as usual. Europe, I wrote about 10 years ago, once the situation, actually more than 10 years ago, once the situation started to unfold in Ukraine, and then, of course, later when it was clear that Europe was lying through the teeth to Russia, that in the end, Europe is the sacrificial lamb. United States, listen, Americans need to eat too. Okay, let's be very blunt, and that's what I like about Trump's foreign policy. You don't need to go around there, tiptoeing it and, saying nice things while meaning their, malice. Europe, nobody cares if they go hungry or what have you, Americans need to eat too, and for empire, so to speak, or whatever is left of the American empire, to survive at least slightly longer, you need to kill Europe by means of deindustrialization. Yes, you are correct. They pay 3 times more, and they will continue to pay 3 times more for hydrocarbons. But they're not going to change. It's too late for Europe. Even if they go out and, let's say, people, for some reason, they overestimate the impact of, let's say, alternative for Germany. They might even get some kind of the significant minority in Bundestag or what have you, and even make some, government positions there. It's not going to change anything in terms of Germany or in terms of France or in terms of any other old Europe. It just must die in American view, and must die. I'm talking about that to become the market for American products. One of them, of course, is military. United States will be shoving down the European throats all those extremely expensive and extremely ineffective U.S. Weapon systems. And just to give you an example, we know F-35 has become a meme throughout these decades, and it's a very not good plane to put in mind there. But guess what? This is the plane which, for example, eventually will arm all air forces of the European NATO, with exception possibly of France, and even that is kind of like, we'll see. And that's basically, essentially, the third world status wrapped up into this, wrapper, shiny, and it's like the expensive looking candy. But then when you open it, it's basically garbage inside. So this is what Europe is becoming. And if you look attentively at UK, for example, or what is happening, some of those nations will not even last through 2015 because they will simply dissipate as the ethnicities and cultures. And we already observed this in United Kingdom. We observed this in France. I don't think so France as the unified country has a future. So we'll see. And that will continue. And that's what essentially it comes down to kill the industry of Europe, turn it into the purely consumer market, which, of course, losing its solvency. The Europeans cannot afford anymore what they used to be able to afford. But this is the plan. Get the all critical industries from Europe. And this is what was this all Build Back Better, whatever the hell, already during Biden administration. It doesn't matter who is in power in the United States. United States has this thing called the foreign policy consensus. It is consensus between primarily illiterate and very, very mentally not adequate people who infest all those think tanks, and even government positions who think that they know how the world works. But in this consensus, Europe must pay, and the pay it will. Actually, it is already doing this, and it will accelerate until Europe is reduced primarily to consumer of the American products and technology, and that will be it. So, but you have to understand that American generals, starting, as he correctly stated, starting from the 2-star generals on up, they are not into real war. They don't understand the real war. They don't understand how to run it. They haven't been taught this, because the only thing you are able to do for military in this case is basically repeat narrative. Otherwise, you're not going to be promoted. And because of that, we have this echo chamber of the amateurs, essentially, military amateurs, who dominate intel and military community in Washington, D.C. And many of them, I don't know, some maybe, many of them, apart from the fact that they parade themselves as the incompetent clowns, like Ben Hodges, for example, or David Petraeus, who expects Russians to collapse anytime, any minute now, and he was doing this for the last 3 years, is the fact that Russians are not in a rush. Their demands are clear. Russians are moving. They are already on the western bank of Oskol River, for example. So, and Ukrainians are preparing defense near Dnipropetrovsk, so they have this whole anti-tank, lines and things of this nature. But the point is that he merely changes a little bit modus operandi. It is those, small tactical steps to adjust already depleted resources of the United States. And U.S. aid, after you see the dynamics in the world and what is happening, so it's proved to be not very effective, especially after the utter failure in Georgia, for example, which even being infected and infested with all those NGOs, managed to still, get the handle on the whole situation internally. And now Georgia is essentially out of the Western fold. To a degree, same goes for Hungary, Slovakia. So, yeah, it's not very effective. There is a certain, strata of the popular, societies everywhere around the world, which is called liberal schizophrenia, if you wish. So, but the majority of people really live by their, everyday affairs, bread and butter issues. Ask anybody who didn't completely lose his or her marbles what matters in their lives. They will tell you stability, which is the most important part in human life. So, and he merely adjusts that. So it's tactical things. It's has very little strategic impact. It just, as I already stated, adjustment, because the United States really doesn't have money. It can print money, but the more you print them, the less you have them. That's what many people do not understand. And he tries to, basically concentrate on, going back to Monroe Doctrine, Western Hemisphere, and this is where he sees United States, exercising full imperial power, including, of course, in Latin America, no doubt about it, Central America, and then, of course, we have the issue of Canada, we have the issue of Greenland, and for Europe is, as Vladimir Putin correctly stated, they will fall in line and will begin to wag their tails, because Europe is not the subject of the international relations, it is an object. And it will be played by the United States to, in the American mind, the advantage of the United States. And it's being played already so. But yeah, it's deindustrializing with an incredible speed, especially when you look at Germany, for example. And so that's the Trump's imperialism, which it always was. It's just that he doesn't like to anymore pretend anything. And I think so it's a very healthy process in this respect. Here's the guy comes out and said, I'm imperialist, I want to do this, and there you go. Take it or leave it. And I think so it's a very positive development, because nobody now has to sit down in some corrupt organization like United Nations and listen to this BS about democracy, human rights, and all kinds of things of this nature. So simple as that.